I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever the case may be. Welcome to God Squad. It is Saturday, and our Saturday version of Cross-Examinations is, of course, God Squad. Today we will be discussing should Christians like Donald J. Trump? That's our president, for those who don't know. Sorry, Canada, you don't get him. Today with me, I have a special guest, my co-writer of many various projects over the years: Imaginaries, Lullaby, Godsword, Hedge Knight, etc., 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 and also prolific on his own and with other co-writers, Ben Avery. How you doing today, Ben?
Good morning, evening, or whatever. Yes, doing good.
And what are you working on again right now today?
Right now, today, I am working on recovering from yesterday, which was a great big giant party day at our church. But today, the project-wise, I'm working on Supersonic Pod Comics, which is a podcast audio drama superhero series. And it's been a lot of fun and a lot of hard work and a lot similar but different than the comic work that I've been doing before. So
right on. And he's working on that with another
J.S.
one
Earls,
of my
yeah.
in crime, J.S. Earls, who worked on the Meg, on some of my Ted Dekker stuff. Yeah, these are my two go-to writers. So if
just so it doesn't get buried in the weeds. So it doesn't get buried in the weeds, because audio drama sounds pretty cool. Where do people go to listen to that, Ben?
Well, look up Supersonic Pod Comics on any place where you would normally listen to podcasts. But we also have our website, which is supersonicpodcomics.com. And we've got, it's basically running as if it was a comic book company. So it's like every Wednesday, the idea is every Wednesday, a new episode from a different series is coming out. And then we rotate them monthly. And also we run late. So just like real comics.
Perfect.
All right. And you all know my regular YouTube partner in crime, Edwin Boyett.
Aloha. And I apologize looking disheveled here. I am just coming back in the door from my run this morning.
You know, I gave you all that time to take a shower, Edwin.
Yeah. Well, I cooled off. I had a glass of water, and then and then it was time to go.
I'm like, I'm going to give Edwin plenty of time. I
put in some miles to do.
Right on. So, as I said, on topic of the day, should Christians like Trump? We're going to be basing this. We're going to be going through an article on ChristianHeadlines.com, as I used to do quite daily before I started doing the daily devotionals instead on cross-examinations, going through articles. And if I can get the share screen button to work, that'd be great. Oh, don't lock up on me. Come on.
Of course.
Jesus, a little help here. Jesus is my IT guy.
And if the audience would share out the YouTube link on Twitter and Facebook, please. We always appreciate that.
That is right. There we go. Where is my... I usually have my thing to clear my memory cache, but it's missing. I don't know what's going on. Quick prayer that my computer doesn't die mid-program. Of course, if it does, I can just use my Mac, but that's neither here nor there. That is Twitter. That is not what I'm looking for. There it is. All right. So, Edwin, do you have this open up on yours?
I sure do.
All right. Well, feel free to read it then.
Okay, so this is from ChristianHeadlines.com. Author is Scott Slayton. 5 reasons evangelicals like President Trump, and 5 reasons they don't. All right. Let's see. Here we go. When Donald Trump announced that he was running for president in June of 2015, it would have been hard to predict he would become the favorite candidate of evangelical Christians. Everything about the thrice-married billionaire seemed to run afoul of what evangelicals had professed to be looking for in a presidential candidate. However, Despite some detractors, the president remains popular with a large percentage of evangelicals. An October 2019 survey found that 82% of white evangelicals want Trump to be the Republican Party's candidate for president in 2020, the most of any subgroup. Here are 5 reasons that evangelicals love President Trump. What subgroup would you fall into? Non-denominational? Sort of.
Yeah, I think I get lumped in with evangelicals.
All right,
But
number
not
1.
white. Sorry, I don't fall into the white part.
Yeah.
I'm off-white.
I fall into the purple part right now. Need to work on the lighting of this room here.
All right, here we go. Reason number 1. He refuses to be politically correct. I first heard an evangelical Christian decry political correctness during Bill Clinton's first term in the early 1990s. Since then, Christians have increasingly felt like the culture is more and more hesitant to say what is true because it could hurt someone's feelings. Then in stepped Donald Trump. Jack Graham, the pastor of Prestonwood Baptist Church in Plano, Texas, and former president of the Southern Baptist Convention, said of Trump, "He's a fighter and he fights for things he believes in, like the right to life. He's not politically correct, but he's willing to take on the difficult issues." Continue, or do you want to what do you think of that?
I just want to stop for a second. We got 6 people watching now. We are, when I was putting in the title, I'm like, let's see, this is going to have the word God, Christian, and Trump in it. YouTube is going to throttle this. And lo and behold, we are 6 minutes in with 6 watchers. Guys, could you all please share this out on whatever social media you have, because YouTube is clearly not going to send out notifications or make this a suggested video to anyone.
Yeah, see, DD saw it in our Blacklist Universe group, which is, I'm going to start every time I'm around and it goes live. I will cross-post to the Blacklist Universe group just to make sure that people get notifications.
Yeah. Andrew J says, God, Christian, Trump, a.k.a. the hat trick for YouTube shadow ban. Yep. Seems to be working. That's all right. That's all right. Yeah, refusing to be politically correct. I mean, I love him for that. That doesn't always mean he's going to say things the way I would say them. And unfortunately, he does say things sometimes the way I would say them, and which is also not good. I do have foot in mouth disease.
Ben, can you confirm Mike's propensity to cram his foot in his mouth? Or
I absolutely can, indeed. Me and Mike, we go back to chat room days and Yahoo groups and that sort of thing. And there were some very interesting conversations that would go on. Conversation being a loose term, I guess, for how it was actually playing out. But yeah. But that's part of what we love about him. And
now the entire world is a Yahoo group.
It's true. It's true. Like,
oh no! All right.
It's very sad. Very sad.
Okay. Reason number 2. Now again, the article. Let me drop the link to the article in the chat just in case anybody wants to directly read it themselves. We'll put that right there.
All right.
We're starting out with the reasons why evangelicals like Trump, and it comes from this article on christianheadlines.com. All right, back into the article. Reason number 2, he has promised to protect religious liberty. Evangelicals have felt like they were under attack from the surrounding culture for decades, and those fears have only escalated because of comments from Democratic presidential candidates. In studying the popularity of President Trump among evangelicals, Gerardo Marti argued in the journal Sociology of Religion that he occupies a pivotal role in forcefully affirming their feelings of being threatened and working to maintain their interest into the future. Robert Jeffress summed up evangelicals' thankfulness for President Trump in a recent interview about the rising number of people in America who claim no religion. He said, leftists have been attacking Christianity in America for 70 years. He said Christianity would survive the attacks, but he is not sure if America will. He argued that Americans must push back against the attacks on religion coming from the left and said, it's why I'm so grateful and supportive for President Trump, who wants to end these attacks on religion that have been launched by leftist courts for the last 6 decades.
Ben, any thoughts?
Yeah, I would say this is probably, of the 5, the number one reason that evangelicals are supporting him. Like the 5 reasons not, I don't know if they can be ranked out as easily, but this is definitely the number one, is that he may not share the same morality as evangelicals, maybe not, but he definitely has at least hit on helping the fears of evangelicals and helping alleviate some of that in what he says he's going to do. I think this is probably the number one thing right here.
You see him kind of like an Artaxerxes or a Darius.
Maybe more Darius than Artaxerxes.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, if you play out the Artaxerxes thing, I mean, he was helping people that he didn't necessarily have any reason to, other than his wife was hot, I guess.
But God put him there, right?
What's that?
God put him there in that power of position, you know.
Well, yeah, I guess you can play that out where, yeah, Esther was placed there for such a time as this,
right?
But so was Mordecai, and so was Xerxes.
Yeah, I don't know. I like looking back on that sort of thing. Anyways, yeah, it's funny that somebody who just a few years ago, you know, was a Democrat, and a few years before that was pro-choice, and that's why everybody was like, well, all the never Trumpers I knew were just like, he's just saying all this stuff to get into office. He's just saying all this stuff. As soon as he gets into office, he's gonna flip the switch. And I'm like, dude, this guy is so narcissistic. He's not lying about anything. He thinks he believes what he's saying because he thinks everyone else should agree with him. So that's why I always believed all of the stuff he was saying, no matter what it was. I was like, unless he's trolling somebody directly, I was like, no, I think he's going to stick to that. And I don't know. That's an interesting. I don't know if that has anything to do with this particular item, but yeah. Edwin.
Yeah, well, there are God will use people the way He sees fit. God will use people the way He sees fit, and He has. Trump absolutely has pushed back at this stuff, at least vocally.
Yeah, and it takes a guy like that. It takes a guy who's so forgive the phrase, but cocksure about everything he believes to bull ahead in the light against, you know, media outrage, against political correctness, against the slings and arrows. It takes a guy like that who ultimately you don't look at and you're like, well, gee, he's no Christian. He's not like Billy Graham. He's not, you know, forgiving people 70 times 7, as Edwin's thing says there, you know, but that's not who we need to. We are so off course, right? You can't like gently nudge America back onto the right path. There needs to be a bulwark. And right now, Trump's bullhead is that bulwark. What do you think, Ben? You look like you have a...
No, I just like the bullhead and the bulwark put together. That's a good wordplay. That would make a great point in a 3-point sermon. So.
All right, next.
All right, number 3. Now, this to me is probably the thing that will have the longest lasting impact. Number 3, he has nominated strict constructionist judges. The marriage of evangelical Christianity and the Republican Party began over the issues of abortion and increasing judicial activism. Christians believed that Republican presidents would appoint Supreme Court justices who might be willing to overturn Roe versus Wade and who would commit to interpreting the Constitution rather than legislating from the bench. President Trump promised to nominate judges who would fit the mold as he ran for president in 2016, with the Supreme Court vacancy hanging in the balance. Trump even went so far as to release a list of judges he might consider if he was elected. Evangelicals who did not want to vote for Trump in 2016 were frequently reminded that they did not want Hillary Clinton appointing the next Supreme Court justice. After President Trump won, he kept his promise by not nominating Neil Gorsuch to fill the vacancy left by the death of Antonin Scalia and Brett Kavanaugh to fill the seat that came open after Anthony Kennedy's retirement. Evangelicals know that other seats could be opening soon and want President Trump nominating the replacements rather than a Democrat.
Yep, I know. Or I talked to quite a few Christians, evangelicals, Bible-believing Christians, who that was like the only reason they were pulling the lever for Trump.
Well, and it goes under that number 2. I mean, this is the practical application of what we're talking about with number 2, with his promises for what he was doing, and this is a very real practical application of that.
And probably, yeah, like Edwin was saying, the longest term and most important, I think.
Yeah.
Functionally, we've got to again bulwark, and need somebody who's not going to wilt when it comes to actually picking those and saying, well, okay, let's get somebody through everybody can agree on. It's like, George W. Bush. Let's not go there. Any other comments, guys?
Well, I would say along this vein, and you know what, you have there's a degree where you have to be pragmatic about your governance. It is virtually impossible that you will agree with every position, every statement, even every bit of somebody's character now that is able to get elected to the presidency. But whoever the president is for the next term will very much likely appoint another Supreme Court justice.
Yeah.
Let's see. How old is Ruth Bader Ginsburg?
498.
She is 86. It is almost inconceivable that she will be able to serve another 5 years.
Well, she first served the last 3. Where's she been?
Yeah. Barring nanites or
cybernetic grafting.
Yeah, or stem cells harvested from Planned Parenthood. Yeah.
She's gonna download her conscience into a computer and rule forever.
Yeah,
you're writing a Black Mirror episode right now, actually.
Cyborg,
the eternal
Ginsburg.
Supreme Court justice.
Ever Todd in the chat says, "I just wanted someone that wasn't a career politician for office." Yeah.
Actually, that could be the Lone Star versus the Deep State, where the wargs have infiltrated the government. That's a story.
No, I'd have to dip into the lizard people. Start turning frogs gay.
Oh no! All right, well let's get back on task. Number 4, he works to put America first. Well, yeah. It's right there in the marketing materials. In a 2013 study, white evangelicals were most likely to say they were extremely proud to be an American, with over 2/3 agreeing with the statement. 84% said they believe that God granted the United States a special role in history, divine providence, if you will. Our founding fathers talked about this. With their intense love for America, evangelicals are likely to buy into decline narratives when they see America shrinking from the special role they believe it enjoys. President Trump came out of the gate in 2015 with an America First message. His promise to make America great again resonated with many evangelicals because they could remember America's glory days and they wanted to see them return. Trump said he would build a border wall and put Americans back to work again. He spoke of the American military with great affection and talked about America like it was the greatest country in the world. People who love America as much as evangelicals have embraced this message.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just kind of sad that people on the other side, it's like they've been trained to hate America. They've been trained to just focus on all of the warts and the pimples rather than the great that we've done, the great that we constantly do. We're the most charitable nation in the history of planet Earth. You know, we help countless people around the planet, and yet they look at us and they see the, you know, evil white devil. And it's like, this is your country too. But yeah, and that was the guy we had in office last 8 years. Ben?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was just thinking about this. I'm listening to a book about the history of Star Trek, and they talk a lot about American exceptionalism in the original series. And it got me thinking about how, space, the final frontier, that's the next frontier is part of Manifest Destiny, you know, and in some ways that's what got people motivated to be, we're looking out. We're always looking outward. We're always pushing outward. And then since then, as the space program, we can debate the space program as much as we want, but as we are moving more interior, as we're not looking outward to grow, as we move to looking more inward, the people are focusing on the warts because they're looking more at the warts, I think, as opposed to look at the things we're doing, and instead of look at what we are. And there, you need to have introspection, but it is that kind of difference between the Make America Great Again. I don't agree with the phrase necessarily because I believe America is great enough to get through Clinton, Obama, Bush, Trump. America is great enough to get through all of it. So great again? No, just keep America great, But
well, that's the next slogan.
But the point being, it is interesting when you have these two different ways of looking at America. And the one is we got to fix everything because everything's broken. And the other is we got to fix everything. Although I guess, no, Trump was saying we got to fix everything. Make America great again. Never mind that last bit. Well, but the space thing was totally legit.
I think it was look at him. He probably looks at America like the stock market, and we had a peak, in the 80s, and then we've had a steady kind of bumpy decline until Obama, and then he wants to just get us back over that, up to that peak again,
Yeah, no, but there is definitely a difference between as you're looking at Republicans and Democrats, especially. Republicans saying America is great. Let's keep it up. Let's keep doing these things that make it great. And then on that Democrat side, it's not. It's not. And a lot of times
Democratic America's never been great. I'm like,
right,
oh,
right.
Okay.
It is.
But a lot of it is, it's not great because of you guys. And then the Republican side, well, no, we have to worry about you guys because we want to keep it great. So get away. But yeah, there's a very difference, and it's not very subtle between, America, has a lot of problems. I'll be the first person to say that. And I can, because I grew up in Canada, but it's just, there's a lot of problems, but it's still an amazing place. And when your starting point is, it's not amazing, it's not good. you're starting with the negative. And I think Trump hit a real strong note when he started with the positive, talking about the greatness.
And oddly, it is, 80, what did it say? 2/3 of evangelicals agreeing. Is that, wait, to be an American with over 2/3 agreeing. Yeah, white evangelicals. I hate white evangelicals. I don't hate white evangelicals. Don't click that.
There's our poll quote.
Yeah,
I hate that they categorize everything, white evangelicals, saying they're extremely proud to be Americans. Yeah. I mean, that's, and those are the ones who believe this is a Christian nation. We look at our founding fathers, we look what they said, we look what they did, we look at the laws they implemented. They intended this to be a Christian nation, and it's been the anti-Christians among us who've been whittling away at that for 200 years now. But those who still believe that tend to be the people who believe that America is great, and America is great because God has blessed this country.
That idea again of divine.
And then Canada gets the runoff.
Yeah. I wasn't born there, but I just grew up there for a little bit. So,
all right, here we go. Number 5. He enjoys the support of evangelical leaders. When many evangelicals were not sure if they could support Trump in good conscience, evangelical leaders came out of the woodwork to rally around him. Robert Jeffress, the pastor of the influential First Baptist Dallas, appeared at rallies with Trump and expressed support for his agenda. Jerry Falwell Jr., president of Liberty University, invited Trump to address the student body at Liberty and enthusiastically supported his campaign. President Trump has also enjoyed the enthusiastic support of Reverend Franklin Graham since he won the Republican nomination. Graham even called for a day of prayer for the president in June of 2019 because no president has been attacked more than Trump has, and because the only hope for him and this nation is God.
Amen.
I think didn't Pat Robertson recently give him some, and he was speaking in religious terms, and I probably don't align well with some of Robertson's theology or some of his stuff, but he said that Trump was in danger of losing his divine mandate. Was that done in conjunction with the pullback from Syria, leaving those Kurds and such kind of hanging there for a couple of days? Is that what it came in?
I don't know. I don't follow the 700 Club.
Yeah.
I don't have anything negative to say about him per se, but I don't follow him enough to.
And I just happened to catch it on Drudge. Yeah.
I just know that a lot of my older Christian family on my wife's side watches them because I think that's old person viewing.
Yes. All right. Now we're at the transition point where we're going to go into why evangelicals might not like Trump. Since we've had quite a few more people join us, can you reintroduce our new guest, Mike?
Absolutely, ladies and gentlemen. This is Ben Avery. Here, I'm gonna make it all you, Ben. This is Ben Avery. He has been my writing partner off and on for
years, decades almost.
Jeez, decades.
I think we could probably add an S and make decade plural. We're almost there. Imaginaries, Lullaby, The Hedge Knight,
Godsword
Yep.
Coming up. If Ben ever delivers a draft to me, I can read. And he's working with another one of my writing partners, J.S. Earls. And again, if any of you guys need, I know a lot of artists really just don't know good writing, right? And that's why they hire bad writers, because they're like, I can't write. You can probably write, but I wouldn't know because I don't know good writing. If you guys need good writers, Ben Avery and Jeff Earls are my go-to guys. They are two top-notch. They know storytelling. They know writing. So if anybody's looking for good writers to partner with, I don't know if Ben's too busy to take on other work. He certainly hasn't gotten God's Sword done, but
It's different seasons throughout the year. Actually, today is the last day of the busy season of high school for my kids. Cross country is done for both of my girls, or two of my girls rather, and my oldest son, and it's gonna feel really good very soon.
Awesome. All right, and everybody knows Edwin 70 times 70 Boyette. John T says Trump, quote, lost the mandate from heaven for de-escalating from a conflict that killed thousands of Christians at the hands of jihadists that Obama and Hillary armed and funded.
Yeah. There's all right. So there's some truth. There's some truth here. Every time we've gone in and we've destabilized one of these areas, and the person who's running that area may be pretty horrible, but a lot of times it turns out that people were safer before, or Christians were safer before. In pre-Civil War Syria, Christians were free and relatively safe in their person to publicly and openly practice their faiths. And they weren't met with the daily threat of violence or the potential loss of life. In post-Civil War Syria, oh man, I mean, I'm sure we've all read about some of the atrocities committed against Christians in Syria and so forth.
It's yeah, and I don't know, for me personally, I don't necessarily believe all the reports that come out of that part of the world. Sure. I think it gets filtered through a lot of biased news sources before it gets to us. So I just listen to there's a big Chaldean population here in El Cajon, right by where I live, and I listen to some of those guys, and boy, they tell a completely different story than what we get from the news. So anyways, back to the topic of the day.
All right, here we go. Now we're transitioning. Here are 5 reasons that some evangelicals do not support the president. All right, number 1, he speaks ill of other people. President Trump kicked off his presidential campaign by demeaning immigrants who crossed the border from Mexico. Within the first couple of months of his campaign, he denigrated John McCain's military service, opining that he likes having heroes who weren't captured. He insulted opponents by giving them derisive nicknames and appeared to mock a reporter who suffers from a physical handicap. Trump supporters love his insults, claiming he doesn't speak like a politician, and then it's proof that he is a fighter. However, other evangelicals respond that he is degrading our nation's political discourse and say they cannot support someone who speaks so sinfully about other people made in God's image. David French commented on Trump's language in the National Review, saying, "How can I support a man who demonstrates such a breathtaking level of malice and cruelty in his treatment of his fellow citizens?"
Yeah, I laugh my butt off at the stuff Trump says. I'm guilty. John McCain came after him with both barrels, so I don't have any pity for him, and I never liked the man anyways, so I didn't mourn his loss. Sorry, got to be honest. And I mean, a lot of this stuff is still the perception of what he's said or done rather than the reality of it. I mean, it's all arguable. Not all of it. The John McCain thing was not arguable, but it doesn't bother me. The other stuff is mostly all arguable. I'm trying to skim it. Can you not do that right in front of my door?
He just jumped on my back.
Great. Close the door. My cat just jumped on his back. Claws out. Yeah, Max likes to sit on our shoulders, and so he'll just try to jump on our shoulders while we're standing up. But yeah, for me, this is not an issue. How about you, Ben? You have a problem with all this stuff?
This is an issue. Yeah, no, I definitely have an issue with the way he does. Like you said at the beginning, some of the things he says, I really don't like it because it's not the way I would say it. And some of the things he says, I don't like it because it is the way I want to say it, but I won't, and then, and then there's some of the things he says where I really just cannot stand the fact that he said it. Because it's not just even about political discourse. It's about humanity and the insulting of, the thing with McCain that did bother me. I like McCain. I did.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. The thing with the reporter,
Canada. So
the thing with the reporter. I mean, and you know this, Mike, but I do have a little bit of a thin skin when it comes to mocking disabilities and that sort of thing, because of some of the work that I do in my ministries, and that hit a chord for me where it's just like, oh man, why'd you got to do that? You don't have to.
I mean, him doing that in general, I can agree with you. I just don't think he even knew who this freaking reporter was.
Oh, I disagree. I think he did know, because I looked into it. I was like, who is this reporter that he's making fun of?
I've seen him do that kind of stuff with other people who have no disabilities at all. So
and that bugs me too. But
in general, I agree with you, but I really don't think he was targeting the reporter. But again, arguable.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter. I mean, this is one of the reasons why I'm just like, why'd you have to do that? And it's the kind of thing where it's, when your kid does something that you're just like, no, why would you even, why? It's just like that in a lot of ways. And, we can keep going with the list and there's other things that'll come up I'm just going to say the same thing. It's like, no, why? You didn't have to do that. You don't have to do that. Do what I tell my kids to do. Count to 10, then respond. Think about the person that you're talking to.
Yeah, but that
carries the weight of glory.
That's the thing, though. That's not how he got where he is in business, and that's not how he got where he is as leader of the free world.
It's very true, and it's also not his personality.
Jimmy Carter was a very polite, very effete dude. Worst president since Obama. Wow, shut up. Looking at it from God's perspective, it's all time.
If you've got your working time machine, I guess, yeah.
That sounds like some timey-wimey nonsense.
Until Obama.
All right, there we go.
Thank you for editing me live, Ben.
Nice.
Yeah, I calls them as I sees them.
Yeah. Derek LaFlamme says, remember when Thomas Jefferson called Adams an elitist hermaphrodite? The discourse has not recovered. Still hasn't recovered.
Oh, that is another thing I wanted to mention, though, especially from this article. I don't think that Donald Trump caused the death of political discourse. Like, this is, one of the reasons he was able to rise the way he was and not be called out for doing these things is because the discourse was gone a long time ago. And it's not his fault. He just was able to ride in on it. And that's that. Anyone who says the era of Trump is what caused this to happen, they don't know.
John is taking issue with you, Ben. He says McCain committed a lot of evil in this world. He died an unrepentant warmonger with blood on his hands.
Well, we can talk later. Actually, we can't. I don't know who you are. And
all right, let's move on.
I'm sorry.
Okay, back into the article. All right. Number 2, he has questionable ethics. One of the chief reasons almost all evangelicals paused when they considered supporting Trump was because of his moral character. After all, evangelicals were the ones who were beating the drum for character in politicians in the 1990s. President Trump boasted of his sexual exploits, even going so far as to say that trying to keep from getting an STD in the 1960s was his own personal Vietnam. He has boasted of grabbing women by the genitals and faces credible reports of cheating on his wife while she was pregnant with his son. Also, the president displays a penchant for spreading outright lies and wild conspiracy theories. Some evangelicals have rationalized their support for Trump by comparing him to King David. After all, Did God reject David from being king after he had Uriah murdered? Evangelicals bothered by Trump's questionable character have pointed out that the prophet Nathan confronted David about his sin, and that modern day evangelicals should do the same with their current leaders. And just side note for our Christians, David and his family paid a huge price for everything that came after.
Yeah. The sword shall never depart from you.
Yeah.
Um,
Absalom. Oh,
but
Absalom.
this last paragraph, I agree on both sides. I agree that he did bad things. He's done a lot more. He's 70 years old. He's been fairly irreligious, I think, most of his life. I don't know. People have said that he's accepted Christ now, and he's going through, what is the word? Anyways,
Sanctification.
Sanctification. Thank you, Ben. That's why he's my co-writer. But on the other hand, yeah, we can be calling him out, right? As the church, the pastors that he's talking to regularly, they're probably, hopefully, in private, in person, calling him out. So you can have both things. I mean, you can condemn me for the stuff I did yesterday, but I'm, it's today, right? You can condemn me. You can convince me. Iron sharpens iron, all that stuff. But I can't change yesterday. And Trump, I don't know. Has he said anything particularly weird in the last few months? I know for the first couple of years it was, every other day. But I don't know. I don't seem to recall anything egregious like for most of this year. Can you guys think of anything? Maybe he's being sanctified.
I don't know.
I mean,
if Kanye can do what he's doing, maybe. I mean, anyone can, right? So, this is one that I understand. The number two, he has questionable ethics idea, but I just feel like because it's so upfront and center that the political hypocrisy is on the right is far more visible with this one, whereas before the evangelical Republican politicians anyway have been able to take the high road and look like they're taking the high road without actually looking like the politicians that they actually are, which and I'm just going to say it right now, I'm very cynical when it comes to politics and politicians. Everyone, if you're able to be a politician and do it well, then I got a homemade crossbow getting aimed at my head by my 9-year-old. So.
It's like you're.
Is he trying? Is he challenging to become the patriarch of the family, Ben? Or?
I hope not. He's found me at a weak point though, where I'm on microphone and camera, and yeah. But anyway, I mean, we elected Trump to be a politician. We elected Trump as a politician. Did not elect him as a pastor, and I don't necessarily like when people bring that up so much. But there's a very real truth to it, which is he's not. He just isn't. And the people that I follow as my shepherd, as my pastor, he's not one of them. He is someone that was elected into office because of the political stuff that he promised to do.
Yep.
And every other politician, I should say a lot of politicians, though, don't get scrutinized in the same way because he's courting people who have a strong morality and a strong moral sense. And so because he's doing that, that's where he gets that real scrutiny that goes on, as opposed to other politicians. We're getting to the whataboutism or whatever now.
Yeah.
But
I think the scrutiny is the purpose of the scrutiny is trying to embarrass evangelicals,
yes,
lack of a better term, to not vote for him. It's all political.
Right.
They're like, how can you vote for him? How can you vote for him? You have to vote for the one who wants an abortion with every meal. It's, they're not going there. They're just trying to stifle the vote because there's no way the evangelicals are going to vote for one running on the Democratic side.
Is this rules for radicals playbook stuff where you try and force your opponent to adhere to their values while not doing the same, to try and defeat people with their own values?
Right.
Yeah,
Yep.
I'm not familiar with that, but it sounds.
Yeah, it's straight out of the playbook.
Yeah, Saul Alinsky was Hillary Clinton's mentor, and essentially he was a Marxist activist, and he wrote a book called Rules for Radicals, and that was one of the points where you use somebody's values against them, and so that presumes that the population that you're trying to contest with actually has values. All right, let's. Side note. Do you think that people are getting numb to these sexual scandals? Because there is a representative, a U.S. representative from Mike's neck of the woods, and the Daily Mail just released pictures. I guess the representative, the U.S. representative, and her husband were having some sort of romantic and sexual relationship with one of her aides, and so now she's going to get some kind of ethic investigations in Congress. But I wonder if people are just getting numb to this stuff now.
I don't know. I think maybe, but only in the sense that it's ongoing and forever. And I'm just very frustrated with politics in general, and have been ever since I've been old enough to vote and be aware of what's going on.
Yeah. Well, it is not. None of these politicians are Jimmy Stewart going to Washington.
No, but I would vote for Jimmy Stewart
and
in Washington or wherever. Yeah.
Sometimes it seems like a lot of this stuff is just lip service to our values, right? Rather than embracing those values or trying to forward those values. It seems just like performative theater sometimes.
Yeah.
All right. I am going to go to the next entry. This is entry number 3, and it says, "Now this one is important to me. This one is important to me because this is, and if you, I don't even need the evangelical adjective here." He says he hurts evangelical witness. Many evangelicals worry about how we can evangelize the culture after our open support of President Trump. Writing in The Atlantic, Peter Weiner, we'll say Weiner, a senior fellow at the Ethics and Public Policy Center, said, nonchalantly jettisoning the ethic of Jesus in favor of a political leader who embraces the ethic of Thrasymachus and Nietzsche comes at the cost of Christian witness. Critics of evangelicals cite the statistic that 81% of white evangelicals voted for Trump and use it as a battering ram to discredit the Christian message. Evangelicals worry that it will be difficult to regain credibility in the public square on moral issues after supporting a blatantly immoral man.
Yeah, but this is where calling him out is important, and this is where, we've talked about this with the other point as well. This whole idea of because of this, and you don't believe that's true, you don't believe that's moral, but you still voted for the guy. The box that was created though with our two-party system, with you can choose this one or this one. This one supports policies that I support, but morally I find them reprehensible. This person I'm a little maybe closer to morally, but at the same time, there's a lot of things I find reprehensible that they support. And what do you do? What do you do? And this is where that thing you're talking about, where if you can get them to not vote at all, that's the same as a vote for
the other guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So some of this, you have to wonder if it's trying to use people's own values to demoralize them.
Yeah, I really want to look up what you brought up and take a look at that, because that's exactly how it works. It's working well in some ways, I think.
Are you talking about rules for radicals?
Yeah, that. I mean, they're using it and using it well and shutting people up with it because, oh, you voted for him? Well, then you are not a good person, are you?
Yeah. How can you be a Christian?
As you do that, Ben, there's another thing you might enjoy. There was a defector from the Soviet Union in the early 1980s. He worked for the KGB as like a journalistic liaison. His name was Yuri Bezmenov. As you look up Saul Alinsky, you might really enjoy watching some of Yuri Bezmenov's videos, because he kind of almost 40 years ago, he kind of predicts a lot of this stuff.
He forecasts it, the whole plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. But Nietzsche, I don't see how. No, I mean Trump. Like I said, I don't know if he's really become born again or anything like that. But it seems to me like he's moving in a positive direction, compared to the guy he was 3 years ago. And maybe that's being surrounded with, rather than being surrounded with a bunch of sharks in business, he is, well, a bunch of shark politicians. But a lot of these guys, he's being surrounded with some, Mike Pence is a very strong Christian. Pence's wife, obviously. And he's now, I don't know, maybe he's just softening to it a bit. I think that'll hopefully continue in that direction.
The true test will be, what is he like on the campaign trail? The proof is in the pudding. The test is in the actions. It's if there's no fruit, that's the question. And the thing is,
when is Ginsburg gonna die? That would be bad. Although it'd be something that I could see him saying 3 years ago, not now, no. Because I'd say it. I mean, I'd want to say it, but I wouldn't want to say it out loud.
All right, let's go on to the next entry. Number 4. He ignores the least of these. When President Trump rode down the escalator in Trump Tower to announce his presidency, he made building a wall on the southern border the focal point of his campaign. Then, after a shooting in San Bernardino, he promised to restrict the immigration of Muslims to the United States. He shrank the number of refugees who could find asylum in the United States. Evangelical critics allege that the president has no heart for those whom Jesus calls the least of these. Russell Moore, president of the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission of the Southern Baptist Convention, contrasted the president's seeming contempt for immigrants with the love of Christians should have for those coming from other nations. Christians can disagree about what our exact policies should be. What we cannot disagree about would be the immigrants themselves. The Bible very clearly reveals that we're dealing with here is not a problem to be solved, but people who are created in the image of God. And so while a Christian may have a disagreement with another Christian about exactly what bill should be passed to address the problem, a Christian can't participate in immigrant bashing and demonization of or mistreatment of people who are suffering around the world.
See, I think that's a completely biased way to look at what he's done, though.
Yeah.
Right. The Muslim immigration problem is a problem. Look at freaking Dearborn, Michigan. Right. You can't overrun a country with Muslims, whether they're by the way, they're surrounded by 7 other countries that can take them in, and they wouldn't have any kind of a culture shock or anything. But no, ship them all the way from the Middle East to America, this isn't practical. This isn't reasonable. This is just political footballery, you know? And
Well, also, if we would stop creating power vacuums, and destabilizing regions, there would be a lot less refugees. And we tend to intervene. We tend to intervene in places. We overestimate our ability to bring order to our region, and we grossly underestimate the consequences of our unilateral action in some of these places, removing leaders or supporting, indirectly supporting efforts to remove leaders. I mean, how long has the conflict in Syria been going on now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I just feel like this article, at least this part of the article, is written from a perspective that's not taking both arguments.
Yeah.
And it seems a little biased, but Ben might agree.
Well, I think it seems a little biased because this is intentionally, these are the 5 reasons why not, like if this was one of the reasons, was his foreign policy was one of those number 5 up top, it'd be biased the other way. I think this is biased because this is those Christians who say this is the problem. This is what they're saying. And so I think in that way, at least the article is written well. As for my
saying, if it was saying, opponents say, but it's not. It's stating these as facts, and these are not facts.
That's true. That's true. It's a bullet point list.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, no, yeah, you're right about that. This is I go back and forth on this, and this is something I don't know enough about to really come down on one side or another as far as like what's the right way to do things. It's talking about Christians can argue about policies, which policy is best, and I think we should be arguing about policies, which one is best, which one is that Good Samaritan policy. What's the policy that's going to be acting as the Good Samaritan? The Good Samaritan didn't take the guy home. The Good Samaritan took him to a place where he could get helped and helped him, right. And this is something you've talked about too, Mike, where you said, we're the most giving country in the history of the world. Mm-hmm. A lot of that comes from an excess of wealth, and that excess of wealth being used in a John Wesley kind of way, not quite as much as him, but, and so you get into this, he's talking about building a wall. I wish that when Trump talked about building a wall, he would also talk about building doors, like let's build a wall and then let's make the doors visible, and easier to get to.
Great big beautiful door in the great big beautiful wall.
Yeah,
and on top.
The interesting thing too. I mean, so why? And we were talking about Muslims earlier, but now we can talk about Southern and Central America. Immigration from Mexico itself has declined remarkably because birth rates have dropped in Mexico. Apart from the areas of Mexico that are riddled with narco-state violence, standard of living has gone up, and typically as standard of living goes up, birth rates go down. So there's less pressure. The economy has improved in some areas of Mexico. So much of the immigration coming through our southern border is not even coming from Mexico anymore. But you've got these other failed states, and let's be honest. American greed and American thirst for hunger for drugs created and funded the narco states that made these people's lives miserable.
Yep.
I just read an article the other day, and I don't know how much of it was hyperbole, but supposedly the forces of one of these cartels actually took over a town for a day, ran off the Mexican army, defeated the Mexican army national forces that were there, and actually had them release one of these cartel hostages to the cartel. The Mexicans had apprehended the guy and gave him back to the cartel, because otherwise the cartel forces were just going to rampage through the town. Mm. And so, We've contributed to these things.
Well,
Yep.
and along with that, why wouldn't you want to leave that? I mean, and come to this place. I mean, this is the place. This is the greatest country, and I can understand the need and the want and the desire to immigrate.
Yeah.
The reason the Mexicans, though, as a state, don't solve their own problems, which unfortunately would probably have to be solved through violence, is because they can come here. The people who have the motivation to do something about their lives are the people who would stand up against the cartel, stand up against the government, but instead they're standing up and coming here.
You think we're bleeding off? We're bleeding off the people who have the will to pursue a better life.
Yeah.
Or better conditions.
Yeah, the ones who are willing to just sit there and take it are sitting there and taking it.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much of that is all a matter of will, but I just, with this kind of thing, it does get me. And the least of these, the idea here. I mean, we have circles of influence, and your first circle of influence is yourself. And that's why I tell my kids, like, they're fighting each other and they don't get along. I'm like, you have to start with yourself. You have to change yourself. That's your first circle of influence. And then you have your family and your community and your country, and this circle of influence. The question that you have to get into with all of these things that we have a problem with Trump is, what do I have to do? What should I be doing for the least of these? And then, let's vote and vote for what our country is going to do for the least of these. The unfortunate thing is the way Trump couched the argument and the way it's become build the wall, that's a really strong statement. It's a perfect statement for Trump to make and a perfect statement for everyone else who's against him to just argue against because of what it sounds like he's saying versus what he's actually saying, which is stronger borders. And again,
for 30 years has been saying.
What's that?
Which every politician for 30 years.
Yeah. But, I don't know if there's a better way to say it. My door idea, sure. I'm not running for president. And that might be one reason is, well, there's many, many reasons I'm not running for president. Sorry
to cut you off, but we're overtime and I want to get to the last
one. Let's do it then.
We are our overtime.
All right, number 5. He's the kind of man that evangelicals once criticized. In a scathing opinion piece at the Washington Post, John Fea reminds readers of what evangelical leaders said during the last presidential impeachment in 1998. He pointed to an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal from 1998 in which Franklin Graham criticized Americans for believing the notion that what a person does in private has little bearing on his public actions or job performance, even if he is the President of the United States. Fea also reprinted the words of James Dobson, who served on Trump's Evangelical Advisory Committee, who said in 1998, "You can't run a family, let alone a country, without character. How foolish to believe that a person who lacks honesty and moral integrity is qualified to lead a nation in the world." Evangelicals who are critical of Trump point to declarations like these and wonder what's changed, the indispensability of character or our values. Evangelicals warned about men like President Trump in the 1990s, but in the 2010s, they have embraced him and heralded him as the new King David. As President Trump's impeachment proceedings continue and the race for the White House in 2020 ramps up, evangelicals will continue to have strong feelings about President Trump. Some will continue to support him, but some will abandon him, and some will dig deeper in their opposition. But all Christians must obey the words of 1 Timothy 2 and pray for our leaders.
I don't know anyone who voted for Trump last time who is abandoning him this time. Do you?
Not in my circle.
Ben?
I don't, and I think mainly because anyone that that's going to get put up on the Democratic side. It's going to be the same
hate.
battle, the same,
But
same
further
reason.
to the left.
Yeah.
Further to the left. I think that's oddly a reasonable argument to make. What has changed? I don't know. I think the country has changed, frankly. I don't think, as far as the impeachment is, Ronald Reagan was a divorcee. He cheated on his wife. That didn't make him a bad president, but that was years before that happened. Trump, I don't know if Trump got caught cheating during his presidency, I think people would probably be a little more upset than the fact that there's rumors of him cheating prior to him ever running or even not thinking about it. He's been thinking about it since the 80s. But, again, what's past is past. Past isn't always an indicator of how someone is going to be in the future, but it's a pretty good determinator.
John T. has a timely observation in your chin.
Times have changed. We can't afford to be choosy. We live in a far more deranged and debased society than we did 30 plus years ago. What I think would be wonderful and ideal is that Trump's the bulldozer paving the way for someone who is all these things we're asking for in Mike Pence to be president after him. But you gotta get somebody who's willing to get in the mud and pull the weeds out before you can plant that garden. Because, like I said, man, we need that bullheaded bulwark. I'm gonna keep using that.
It's your book title.
Any comments, Ben?
The main one is just that's 1 Timothy 2, like exhortation at the end of this article is a really strong exhortation. And it really comes down to not just praying for Trump, but praying for, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. It's praying for those people that maybe you feel like don't deserve your prayers, or maybe feel like really need your prayers.
All the time, Ben.
What's that?
I said I prayed for Obama all the time.
Yeah, you've got to, and you've got to pray for your enemies. You got to heap burning coals on their head, and in this case, we got a man in office who some of the things he's doing are really good, and some of the things he's saying are really not. And
yeah, but that's the difference. Between
that's true. It's true.
Words,
it's true. But if you have a difference between actions and words, where does the tension lie? And that's where starting inward and then pushing outward is your circles of influence. Starting inward is praying outward. And then, and if you're worried about the least of these, you got to be doing it yourself. You've got to start with yourself and help those people yourself, and don't just complain that the wrong guy is in office.
It's not the government's job for you to do good.
Right. Exactly. That's a really good quote. I hope you made that up just now.
I did.
Right. I love it.
That's the subtitle of my book. Edwin, any final thoughts?
Matthew 13, 24-30. 24 through 30. You ready?
Yeah.
Another parable put he forth unto them, saying, The kingdom of heaven is likened unto a man which sowed good seed in his field. But while men slept, his enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat, and then went his way. But when the blade was sprung up and brought forth fruit, then appeared the tares also. So the servants of the householder came and said to him, Sir, didst not thou sow good seed in thy field? From whence then hath it tares? He said unto them, An enemy hath done this. The servant said unto him, Wilt thou then that we go and gather them up? But he said, Nay, lest while we gather up the tares, you root up also the wheat with them. Let both grow together until the harvest. And in the time of harvest I will say to the reapers, Gather ye together first the tares, and bind them in bundles to burn them, but gather the wheat to my barn.
All right. One last question. Sorry to bring this over. Zorank says, serious question. What are these concerns by evangelicals compared to the real concerns about kids being infused with puberty blockers, secular bazi, I don't know what that is, and family destruction. That right there is the difference between somebody saying something and somebody doing something. What Trump is doing far outweighs by any measure on earth the stupid things he might say, in my opinion. And that's just reality. Anything else?
Thanks for the conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Ben.
Maybe something to do on a Saturday afternoon.
Ben Avery, my co-writer on many, many projects and more to come in the future. And Edwin Boyette, thank you both for being here. Thank you, everybody, for showing up on a Saturday afternoon, hanging out with us and talking some Trump and Jesus, although it was a little heavy on the Trump.
A lot more Trump than Jesus, yeah.
But it was an interesting conversation. I think one worthy of being had. So with that said, I'm going to leave us with some winning. Good night, good day, good morning. God bless you guys, and good night. Say goodbye, guys.
Aloha.
Bye, guys.
Because we're going to turn it around, and we're going to start winning again. We're going to win so much. We're going to win at every level. We're going to win with every single facet. We're going to win so much, you may even get tired of winning. And you'll say, please, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore. Mr. President, it's too much. And I'll say, no, it isn't. We have to keep winning. We have to win more.